So announcements, just an update on test kits. We continue to have very low supply. We continue to prioritize schools. We are going to distribute some partially fulfilled requests today and the rest of this week. So if you have requested since the last distribution, you should be receiving a contact in the next few days. Hopefully, we will also be able to fulfill more requests next week. That's the plan. We have purchased some tests, but we continue to wait on those tests to arrive. So in the meantime, we still are only able to fulfill partial requests. There are other options you may want to look into for your schools or your districts. One of them is the Perkins-Elmer PCR testing. This is a free resource to schools, and we can put all of this in the follow-up email, so don't worry too much about that. We will have links to these things. So the Perkins-Elmer PCR testing is an option. ADHS also has an online test kit request. These are going currently to pooled testing participants, but if they have extra, then they will start making distributions to other schools. And then districts are also able to purchase their own test kits. So if you guys and your administration has the funding available, you're also always welcome to purchase your own. So those are some other alternatives. So here's a little data update. So as of today, according to the CDC data tracker, we continue to be in high transmission, over 2,500, some days over 3,000 new daily cases. The past 7 days, we've had about 17,000 new cases in Pima County. Currently, our rate is 1,663 cases per 100,000 people, and our test positivity is 34%. So this has continued to increase. And it's hard to say yet if we have peaked and are heading back down. We don't have that data quite yet that we can say one way or another. Here's some schools data. So this is cases that were reported to us. Most of this probably doesn't make sense because there's no headers, but down here we have the total. So this is staff cases, student cases, total cases, and then these are close contacts in the gray. I don't know if you can even see my mouse, but the ones we want to look at are the red numbers at the bottom. So those are the total cases for that day. And then the gray numbers right below that are the number of close contacts for that day. So far this week, on Monday, we had 833 cases reported from schools, and on Tuesday, we had 1,036. Wednesday morning only, we had 335 more cases, but this doesn't include the afternoon numbers. So that is incomplete. I do want to update you guys on some CDC guidance. So quarantine for people who have tested positive for COVID in the last 90 days, that has been updated. Previously, quarantine requirements were based on vaccination status, and they have been updated so that if people tested positive for COVID in the last 90 days, they are not required to quarantine. So these people are essentially treated like fully vaccinated people during that 90-day window. They must mask, they must continue to symptom monitor throughout their quarantine 10-day time frame post-exposure, but they do not have to go home, basically. So we will be updating the sanitary measure, we'll be updating the close contact letters, and we'll be updating test mask stay to align with this new guidance from the CDC. And we're hoping to have those out to you guys in the next day or two. We wanted to clarify also some preschool guidance. We've gotten a lot of questions from early child care centers, preschools, daycares. So the CDC has not updated quarantine and isolation for this population. They do not have the option at this point of the 5-day quarantine or 5-day isolation. That's only for um, K-12 essentially and older. So currently, we're still requiring the full 10-day isolation period for anybody testing COVID positive. Any child, staff can do the 5-day, but children need to do the 10-day isolation. They also need to do the 10-day quarantine. If you are able to test the child, so they would have to be at least 2 years old or older. But if they're able to be tested, then on days 5 to 7, then they could return on day 8 if they remain asymptomatic and that test is negative. Universal indoor testing, or sorry, universal indoor masking is also, um, strongly recommended by the CDC. That's their guidance, and that also aligns with our current Pima County Board of Supervisors resolution for a masking requirement. Um, Test mask stay is not for this population. That is only for K-12 schools. So, doing an abbreviated quarantine or something like that based on test mask stay does not apply to this population. Lastly, contact tracing. There's been some confusion around contact tracing and test mask stay. These two things are not the same thing. Contact tracing is identifying students and staff within 3 feet if they're masked, or 6 feet if unmasked, of a COVID positive case, and that's for 15 minutes or more within a 24-hour period. So identifying those individuals in your school, and reporting that to us, that is contact tracing. This is necessary to properly quarantine folks if they are identified as a close contact to a COVID positive case. It's also necessary to do contact tracing for test mask stay to, again, identify the close contacts, but they're not exclusive. Contact tracing is not exclusive to test mask stay, or vice versa. I just wanted to clear that up. And then to review the reporting. So if you're submitting a line list, that is an online portal. If you suspect that you have an outbreak, there's multiple cases, and you believe it's an outbreak, you can submit the details of that to schoolsupport@pima.gov. We work with our EPI team to review those cases. And then if you have a school or a class that's closed or returning to virtual learning, something like that, please just let us know for our own awareness. And again, you can submit that to schoolsupport@pima.gov. So we know that reporting gets a little complicated, but we want to thank everybody for all your hard work on reporting and those folks who have been reporting all of this data to us. So that I went kind of quickly. That is all the information that I have to share with you today. Of course, these slides will go out in our follow-up email, as well as some of the resources that we reviewed in these slides. So that will be coming to you. So I'm going to quit sharing my screen, and I am going to do some Q&A. I know that there's been some questions in the chat, so my team members have not responded to you, then you could read out one of those questions, or if you want to unmute yourself, you can unmute yourself with a *6 and ask any questions that you might have. No questions today. Let me look in the chat real quick. Do you want schools to submit a new order for test kits? So if you, I would wait to submit any new orders for test kits until Monday, because we are distributing test kits this week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So if you have submitted an order and haven't heard anything yet, I would wait until Monday. If you have not submitted any orders recently, then you can go ahead and submit an order now, but it won't be fulfilled until at least next week. Do I have the running total since July? Francesca, I'm not sure what running total that is, but if you want to clarify, then it's probably a number I can get you for the follow-up email. Can we get that in writing for parents about test messaging for preschool? Yeah, so yes, we did send out a letter specifically to our child cares about the current guidance, and this was back in December, I believe, might have been the beginning of January as the semester was kind of starting. We didn't mention test mass day in that guidance, but we did outline the guidance that we expected. So Megan, if you want something else, please email us at the school support email address and we can get something for you. Close contacts is 3 feet for adults if masked. We understood it was 6 feet for all adults, regardless of masking status. You may be right, Laura. I'll have to look at the CDC again. I know that the K-12 exception was the 3 feet for people that were masked, but that may have applied to only students. So I'm sorry, I don't want to say anything until I review that. Guidance, please, for unvaccinated preschoolers that have a positive family member at home. When does their quarantine start? After the parents' 5-day isolation or parents' 10-day isolation? So I would say that the quarantine for an unvaccinated student of any age or unvaccinated person of any age begins after the isolation, the parent is released from isolation. So it doesn't matter if that's a day 5, day 10, or whenever that is, whenever the parent, it's obviously not less than 5 days, but whenever the parent meets the requirements that they can end their isolation, that's when the the quarantine would begin for their family members, any close contacts who are unvaccinated. If doctors' offices are reporting positive cases to the state and county, how are the numbers we are submitting being reflected or differentiated? So this is a really complicated question because it's all through the state. There's a state database called MedSys. This is what our epidemiology team and the state epidemiology teams all use. So if, let's say, one case is reported 2 or 3 different times, it all gets matched up so that it's one, they know it's just one test based on like patient name, test date, date of birth, all of that stuff. They kind of review everything and verify. So sort of a brief overview, but there is a state database that this is all going into. And so if cases are reported multiple times, that's how it gets straightened out. Reporting the line list is too time consuming. Sorry, can we expect improvements to this? So currently we do still, our current policy on contact tracing and reporting is, we're still going forward with that at this time. We are reviewing our guidance. I wouldn't say that you should expect improvements per se, but we are reviewing our guidance around contact tracing in general and kind of waiting to see what some federal partners will be doing. But at this time, that's our current policy.
Just a comment on that, Pat.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
We're trying our best to give you the information you're requesting, but we can't continue. I think you'll find that's the reality for a lot of schools. And so I think that what we're requesting is for you to really take a look at the information you absolutely need, because we want to do a good job, but we can't with the numbers that we're facing right now. So some empathy would be appreciated and some consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. We've definitely heard that from multiple schools and districts, and we absolutely know that everybody's struggling right now with their dealing with everything with numbers this high, not just the reporting, but everything else that you're trying to do in school. So we absolutely understand that. We are reviewing it. I don't want to make any promises to you because currently our policy hasn't changed, but we also have understanding that you can only do what you can do. Everybody's doing their best, and we absolutely know that, and we appreciate that. So we do continue to hear from you that this has been super difficult, and we are reviewing our process and kind of figuring out if there's changes that we can make. So I hope to have something out to you in the next week or so, just with any update on what's happening with contract pricing, but we don't know at this time if that will be changing.
Hey, Kate.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to multitask. Just a second, what the previous person said, and I appreciate your consideration of that. I came in about 5 minutes late because I was talking with my principal, who also has COVID and is currently home. We had to shut down, and we had go to distance learning due to 40% of our school and over a third of our staff out, including myself, who is the health office. So I heard you at the very beginning state that we needed to let you guys know that. And I'm just asking how I do that effectively, or where I report that to.
Yep, so you can just email us any information at schoolsupport@pima.gov about any
Okay.
classroom or school closure.
If I could ask one last question, then I'll open the floor again. We did have consent. We're a small charter school on the south side, pre-K through 8. We had concentric. My understanding was concentric was no longer pool testing for us, but we did have the lab show up this week. It wouldn't have mattered because we were distance learning. But am I confused? Are we? Was there? I like I said, I came in 5 minutes late, and I know you guys were talking about that. We were of the impression, for multiple reasons, that we were not going to continue with pool testing at this point now, due to the 90-day tracing that is impossible for us to do at our campus right now. Is that true or not true that pool testing is not available at this time?
So my understanding is that it is available. If there's an issue with your specific school, I don't know information about that, but last I heard from the state, Concentric and EDHS are moving forward with pool testing. So I can check on that. If you want to put that in your email to the school support email address, then I can check with the state and confirm that, get you any updated information.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for all your time on that.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Hi, I'm currently in the concentric pool testing, and we're getting our rapid test from the state, directly from the state through the concentric link that they gave us. One of the nurses from concentric that came to help do our rapid test this morning said that they had gotten notification that the rapid test is changing. They're changing products. Is that something that y'all are aware of? And is there training for that? Because they were talking about how they were having to do a training. I guess when I contact the state, they'll let me know if they're not sending us the same test or not. But do y'all have any information on that?
So on the last call with the state, I had not heard that, but it doesn't surprise me because of the shortages. I think everyone's just trying to get out whatever kind of test they can get their hands on. So that doesn't surprise me. We did, I can try and confirm that tomorrow, but we did send out last week. I'm not sure if you got our email on the call, the follow-up last week, but we did send out some, or actually may have been a couple weeks ago. I'm sorry. We did send out some training for the Quidel, I believe, product. So I can send that out again. I don't know what product Concentric will be using, but if you guys have specific questions about training availability, you can contact the school support email or phone line, and we can try and track down some trainings for you if you feel like you don't have the appropriate training for those tests.
Thank you. Yes, please. We could love to see that information because we do have the CLIA waiver. We just want to make sure that we're in compliance with everything we need to be in compliance with.
Yeah, and the CLIA waiver, I'm not sure if Erica Spence is on the line. If she is, she can hop in, but she had worked with the state on the CLIA waiver because the CLIA waivers are specific to certain tests, a certain kind of test, and they're aware of this issue and are, I don't know if they're going to change the CLIA waivers to include other test types, but it won't cost you guys any extra money to make any changes to the CLIA waiver. So the state's aware of that issue as well. But yes, we can get some training resources out to you if you receive something that you are unfamiliar with.
Okay, well, going back to the CLIA waiver, is that something that we'll need to send a revision in on, or will the state just revise it?
That I'm not exactly sure about that. So let me talk to Erica. She's the one who had been in touch with the state. So I will confirm that. But at this time, I don't believe you guys need to do anything.
Hey,
Thank you.
Kat, it's Paula. I sat in on a meeting earlier this week, and I believe that was reinforced that if you already have a CLIA waiver, the state will be moving that over for you. But we can do a final verification with Erica.
Perfect. Thank you, Paula. All right, we just have a couple minutes left. If there are questions in the chat that I know I haven't gotten to, I know my staff are reporting or responding to some. So the ones that don't get responses, we'll put in the follow-up email. But if you have any other questions and you want to unmute yourself, feel free to unmute *6 if you're on the phone and ask any follow-up questions.
Hi, this is Lisa with the Vail School District. I had a question in the chat that we just want to make sure that we do have an answer for. You may have said it before, but unfortunately I had to put the volume on mute. I was in another meeting. Is there a date, close date, that the revised health order and revised language for the close contact letter will be made available?
It should be this week, so we're hoping today or tomorrow to get those things finalized. The letters take a little bit of time because of the translation and all of that has to happen with our comms team, but that's already in process, so we'll get it out to you as soon as we're able.
Okay, so just repeating, I think I heard that you said the schools should get it today or tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, any other questions for us? Retest on day 5. Sorry, I was just trying to read one in the chat. It says, does a person in quarantine have to retest on day 5 from the end of isolation period or 5 days from the rolling quarantine period? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, but if someone's family member tested positive and then their isolation finishes and somebody else begins their quarantine, they should test 5 days on day 5 post exposure, so the last exposure. So whenever that isolation period ended, that would be the last exposure. So it'd be 5 days from that. Hopefully that answers your question.
Kat, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I put it in the chat, but I have, we had our first case in school. Woohoo, we're joining the club.
Great, welcome.
And we're going to do test masks day. We sent everybody home because we didn't have that set up yet. But if they test, they can come back. I have one family that will not test. And so we told them 14 days, and she's livid. She says every other school is 10 days. Well, she's not at every other school. She's at our school. So, and that was from December. There was a chart that you guys sent out that it's 14 days. So is that, because I'm not seeing 14 days on anything else. The test mask stay says 10 days. So are we wrong on that? Is 14 days been revised to 10 days? If they're not going to test, they're not vaccinated, they're not going to test. So
yeah, so for quarantine, for quarantine, it has been revised to 10 days.
Okay.
Yep. And so that would be, what I always say is the guidance we give you, the guidance from the CDC, that's a minimum. If you and your individual school have the power to make more stringent guidelines, then that's absolutely your choice. If you feel like 14 days is safer than 10, then you absolutely can have that guidance yourself. However, our guidance is for unvaccinated, unmasked people. It would be 10 days.
Okay, asymptomatic, yeah. Okay,
Yep, asymptomatic, absolutely.
okay.
Yeah,
So
well,
even if they don't test, they're asymptomatic, they can come back in 10 days.
yes, yep, yeah, and if they do get symptoms, they should test, isolate, all of that. If they won't test, then they need to at least isolate.
Right, right. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And sorry for
Yes.
jumping in, and I know you sent all of the Arizona COVID-19 release from isolation and quarantine flow chart. That's been very helpful, and maybe if you guys repost that link, I only have the screenshot, but it's the one that gave us the flow charts and what to do. Not sure if that makes sense, what I'm talking about.
Is the one you're talking about red or is it
Yeah.
blue?
It is a red one.
It's the red one. Okay, so I think that's from the state. I will try and find that again. The Pima County Health Department has created some flow charts for the general population, so I should review those and ensure they're appropriate for schools. But ADHS, yes, did have, they did create that flow chart, so I will look into finding that for you.
Hey,
And then,
okay, I have a question because I'm a little confused. You're saying that Pima County's still recommending the 7-day, or sorry, 10, but we're doing 5 days. You have to be out for 5 days, whether you're a close contact or if you're positive. So why are
so it's 5 days and then 5 days of masking. So if somebody is unable to mask for whether that's a medical reason or just because they are unwilling to mask, then that is a 10 days instead of 5 days for both isolation and quarantine.
okay, thank you.
Yep. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there since it is 11:30. Thank you guys so much for continuing to come and be active on these calls and interact with us and reach out to us. We appreciate you all and all your hard work. We will continue to work on answering any unanswered questions and get those resources out to you as soon as possible. But thank you guys, and we'll see you next week, February already.